Hello, my name is Jack Fortin. I am the owner and operator of Jacksville Gold and Silver Trading. Today is September 15th, 2014, and I'd like to talk a little bit about gold, about things affecting the price, about market conditions, and the most important reason for owning gold, which, as I have said in the past, is because of our credit-based money system. Most people are unaware of how our money system works. Our money is created by being loaned into existence through the process of what's called fractional reserve banking. This process creates more debt than money because when the money is loaned into existence, there's that interest obligation. I don't want to get into too much detail on this because there's other things I'd like to discuss, but I strongly urge anyone who has one dime in the investment markets or thinking about making a large purchase, a home or financing a car or something, to look into this, understand how our money system works. It's so important, and there's a reason that most people are ignorant of this. It isn't taught in schools. You're not going to see a CBC special about our money system. It exists because it puts power and wealth in the hands of a certain group of people. It doesn't exist because it's a workable system. Workable is what it isn't. It's basically a system based on confidence. It's a confidence game, and once people lose confidence in it, it's all over. At any rate, what I would suggest is Chris Martinson Crash Course. Links will follow at the end of this video, as well as Michael Maloney's Hidden Secrets of Money, an excellent video series which really goes into detail about how our money system works, although it's based more on the Federal Reserve example, very, very similar to how the Bank of Canada and banks in Canada create money. Same sort of deal. Okay, now the next thing I'd like to talk about is market manipulation. I find it incredible that there's still debate about this issue in this day and age. There's so much information out there. To me, if you don't think the market's manipulated, you might not understand English. I'm going to give you a quote that was made by Alan Greenspan when he was chairman of the Federal Reserve System back in 1998. And it goes like this: "Central banks stand ready to lease gold in increasing quantities should the price rise." Now what he's saying there is that central banks are going to put gold into the market through leasing process, the process of leases, to contain a rising price. It's basically manipulation. And again, I don't want to go into too much detail on the manipulation issue. If you're not sure about it, or you think that this isn't the case, I strongly urge you to go to the GATA website, gata.org. Again, a link will follow at the end of this video. Excellent resources there. The treasurer of the Gold Antitrust Action, Chris Powell, has basically said they're not a conspiracy organization. They're a public records organization because the information, the facts are out there, and GATA has just been gathering them, and now they're available. If you really are interested in this or want to learn more about it, go to the GATA website. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is what's going on with the actual market itself. We know that there's a shortage of deliverable gold in the market because of what's happened with the Bundesbank. If you're not aware of this, back in 2013, the Bundesbank, which is the German central bank, they decided to repatriate some 300 tons of their gold from their Federal Reserve and bring it back to Frankfurt. Their goal is to have 50% of their own gold back in their own vaults. Now, what happened is that this was supposed to be a process of over 7 years, repatriating some 300 tons. They got a good chunk of their gold back from France, but the Federal Reserve gold, the gold that's held at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, of the 300 tons I believe the Bundesbank has there, they got back basically 5 tons in a year and a half. Now, they didn't really want to get this gold back for reasons I'll get into later, but because of public pressure, they had to go through the motions of asking for their gold back. And since they could only get 5 tons back, people were starting to ask questions about what's going on here. Well, the Bundesbank suddenly said, "Oh, we're happy with our gold in New York," and just dropped it. A lot of pundits out there on the web are talking about how their gold has been ripped off. Well, the Bundesbank was complicit in this. When they basically had their gold transferred to New York, and it was basically through a swap arrangement, they knew that gold was going to get mobilized into the market to contain the price. They knew that gold was going to be leased into the market so that it would keep the price of gold down. And that is the problem now. For them to get their gold back, those leases have to be closed. The gold has to be repaid. And if they can only draw out 5 tons from the lease people who have leased it, that speaks of a huge shortage of gold in quantity, at least at the central bank level. So that's something that's really significant. That's going to have a profound effect on gold prices going forward. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is about what's going on with our economy right now, and a little scenario that I personally think that we can see in the years ahead. Now, what's going on here is, as I said before, our credit-based money system creates more debt than it does money. The problem right now globally is that there's far more debt out there than there is money to service it. So central banks are faced with the problem of keeping their currency in circulation without having it all disappear in a deflationary spiral as people pay debt and pull money out of the system because they're concerned about failures and whatnot. So what the central banks want to do is basically devalue their currencies. And they also want to devalue their currencies against other currencies to make domestic exports more affordable for other countries. It helps stimulate the economy. Now the problem lies in when all the countries are devaluating against one another, it gets competitive and it can lead to some serious trade wars, tariffs, and actually even shooting wars for that matter. So what the banks want to do is devalue all of the currency out there, devalue it, but not create all this conflict. And there's one way they can do that, and that's by devaluing their currency against gold. Which leads me to something that I hear a lot about in my shop. People are concerned about confiscation. I can't see them demanding that you turn in your gold and get a certain amount of money back. I don't think that would go too good for 2 reasons. First of all, there's not a lot of gold in North America and most European countries. I think the ownership rate is about 1% of investable assets are in precious metals. That means that they're going to go through a lot of motions and not get a whole lot of gold. The other thing about doing that too is it would drive the gold and probably the silver as well underground. It would become a preferred means of payment and a tax-free means of payment because it's illegal. Nobody's going to claim their transactions in gold or silver, of course. So actual confiscation, it would lead to a problem. Now, I have this theory, and it's only my thoughts on this. I have a theory that what the central banks will do is devalue their currencies, respective currencies, against gold. They'll probably sit down and have an agreement. It'll be most of the IMF countries, Western countries at least, they'll come out and announce that they're going to start backing their currency in gold. Now this will be in response to people losing confidence, because the devaluations are going to be happening soon. People are going to, they risk losing confidence in having confidence lost in their money. So what they'll do is come out and say, well, we're going to peg our dollar, or our dollar actually, to gold. And what they'll do is they're going to peg it at a really, really high rate. And the reason for that, it will ensure that gold will flow from societies at large back into central bank vaults. And there won't be a whole lot of people buying it. And the number I came up with about 4 or 5 years ago was in the $16,000 range. I suspect now it would have to even be higher than that. And it isn't going to happen next week. But when something like this happens, you'll already know that the flight from paper is taking place, because gold will be in the $3,000 range when this happens, I think. And what it will do, again, it will cause people to go out and they'll go to their dentist and get their crowns pulled. So gold that would otherwise not really go to a central bank in a confiscation or some kind of buyout scheme would suddenly flow back there. And with the price really high, people who sell gold are not the kind of people who are going to put a big bag of paper money underneath their mattress. They're going to take that money and spend it. They're going to buy something, and that will have a stimulus on the economy as well. So this would allow the central banks to get gold out of the public hands. When people realize some years down the road that they should be buying gold at $16,000 or $18,000 an ounce instead of selling it, well, that's when the central bank will see, well, gee, our gold is going out faster than it's coming in. Suddenly they'll close that window and say they need to keep the gold to back the currency without explaining how they're not redeeming it anymore. how that somehow backs it, but that's just a way to get gold out of the hands of the public and not really be disruptive or create a counter underground economy. Now having said that, I think it might be a little puerile to expect government to do the right thing. But still, it's a possibility, and I think it's something that we should keep in our mind, because clearly devaluation of currencies are coming.